Yo, what's up? It's Manny Garavito, attempting to do another episode of the Comedy Coach podcast. Now, I know I'm not consistent on this just yet, but give me some time. I've been very busy doing the whole Miami comedy thing. I've been getting a lot of private gigs, but every once in a while, instead of turning on the PlayStation, I say to myself, you know what? Let's do a Comedy Coach podcast. So here I am. And today we're going to be talking about this recent YouTube video I did. I also did a couple of reels about it, called Playful Under Pressure. Let me ask you something. How many times have you made your friends and family laugh? Like really made them crack up just off of a whim? You said something funny and everyone appreciated it. Did you realize how comfy you were? Like nothing can go wrong. Even if it bombed, you'd be like, it doesn't matter. It's my cousin. I grew up with this idiot. That's how you get around the people that you care about and that care about you, or when you're in a really good mood and all the stars aligned for your sense of humor to shine brighter than all of them put together. Now, how do you make it so that you can do the exact same thing when you're under pressure? Well, that's what this podcast is all about. Where does pressure usually show up in your life? It's a bad day, things don't go your way, people don't behave your way. It's so many factors. You just wake up, maybe you're just in a bad mood. Pressure is a normal thing. Life just does that to you. When I wake up, I can already gauge my mood. I can already tell if this is going to be a good day or a bad day just off of my emotions. Sometimes it's for no reason. I just feel a certain way, like, ugh. But I can still find footing in knowing how to find the funny in things. Sometimes being in that mood makes me a bit funnier because it comes from an honest place. So I just want to point out that we all have these moments where we're funnier than other days. If you can spot the moments where you feel the pressure of either your mood or something outside of you preventing you from finding the funny, you can actually jump out of that by realizing that you don't lose your sense of humor when these things happen. You actually just push it away as if saying, I don't have time for this, or I don't want to do that. When you can just embrace it and continue being a humorous person with the same mindset that you're feeling. This podcast, this concept, these series of videos, this is for the people out there that can relate to what I'm saying here. You don't necessarily have to be a performer. You can just be self-aware, living your life day to day, and you just want to have a little more fun in the process, but sometimes your day doesn't go your way. So what would you do if humor didn't disappear under pressure? How would you display it? How would you share your sense of humor when you feel that pressure? Ask yourself, how would you come off? If you're really pissed, can you still be funny being pissed? If you're really upset, can you still be funny? If you're really sad, can you make people laugh through your tears? It's possible. One thing that I've learned about humor is it always comes when it's honest. When you feel a certain way and you know how to share it and be playful at the same time, it can actually make it a lot funnier. So just keep in mind, when these things happen, you're not necessarily losing your sense of humor. You're just shutting it down and not embracing it. I've noticed that in my comedy career, some of my best comedy ideas come when the pressure is turned all the way up. I've been on stage and people heckling me, and then, a comeback or something funny just comes out because it snaps right back. Sometimes the funniest moments come from the tension in the room. Sometimes you can have a funny thought all by yourself and you just start laughing. Of course, not too loud by yourself. You don't want people to start questioning you or anything like that. This is something that happens to me often in social situations and professional situations on stage. And I feel it in my body. I'm like, oh boy, here we go. Not to say that I'm not empathetic or sympathetic to other people's emotions when they try to transfer it onto me, but I can definitely use that as a foundation for funny. If somebody comes around and they're in a bad mood, I can definitely roast them a little bit. Maybe if you roasted them for them being in a bad mood and trying to ruin your sense of humor, you can make them lighten up a little bit. Just keep that in mind. What you're really trying to do here is you're trying to regulate yourself in a way that is still playful. We're going to go into some of the things that I've noticed in terms of like the patterns of this particular concept that I'm trying to relay here. And I'm going to also share with you some of these, let's call them concepts. And since this is a podcast, audible concepts. I'll try to describe these the best I can just using my voice. But the biggest mistake I made was realizing that when I'm in a bad mood, I can't go on tilt and just react emotionally, because if I did, I wouldn't be able to see all the playful and fun things happening in the moment. And what allows me to notice that is when you do feel emotions, or when you do feel like a bad mood coming on, or like some sort of like a negative mood from someone else, it allows you to kind of like just see it in their perspective, or to notice that this is just something that's going to be temporary for yourself. When you know that, you can start loosening up a little bit and start being a little more playful. Like, all right, I'm a little upset right now, but I know this is going to pass. I'm not going to feel upset for the rest of my life. At least I hope not. Seeing somebody get really upset and you're like, okay, this person is acting childish. Then once you see it like that, you can start playing with it a bit. You have a different perspective on what's happening. And then the more you practice this, the more you can see it in real time without going into tilt on that negative emotion when the pressure rises. And so when I got this insight, that's when it really clicked. Like, okay, this is actually the perfect time to start having fun in this situation. So in these tense moments, humor works like a transmission, switching gears whenever you see yourself in these moments. Because I've heard comedians say this before. You treat your comedy like a transmission, and you got to switch gears. Like if something isn't working, you just got to go another direction, or you got to change speeds. Switching gears is actually a great way to think about switching between slow thinking and fast thinking, which is very important when you're doing comedy, especially in conversations, or when you're on stage, or when the pressure rises. When you go into slow thinking, what you're really doing is you're just noticing things and you're being more aware and present. And then when you switch up, and let's say you go into the faster gear, the faster thinking, you can then start speaking more playfully. You can start expressing yourself, and you're able to kind of come off where the humor is appropriate based on the opportunity. But you got to switch back into the slow gear, because if you go too fast in your thinking, you then can ruin the moment, or you're going overboard, or you're over explaining it. So knowing when to switch is what allows you to use your sense of humor like a transmission. So I believe when you use your sense of humor, it's not really about being quick or funny as fast as you can. That's appreciated when it comes to timing. However, you can take your time when it comes to your timing. When you think of your sense of humor like switching gears and not necessarily speeding up, you can see when it's appropriate to start listening, to start being aware, and to start being present on what is happening, whether within yourself, your emotions, your mood, something that you're not looking forward to. And then when you see the opportunity from this slow thinking, you can speed it up and start responding, being playful and expressive when you start sharing your funny or noticing things, and then being able to make fun of that, for lack of a better term. It's not necessarily that you got to think faster. You just need to know how to shift smoother. You got to notice when, okay, I got to slow down, or I got to speed up because I see something funny here and I got to say it right now. If it passes by, then stay on the slow thinking and catch the next wave when it comes around. What you don't want to do is get stuck on either over explaining it or being quiet. You're too self-aware. That's how you panic or freeze up if there's a tense situation or the pressure starts being applied. And now the second concept I'd like to share with you to be playful under pressure is understanding your state of mind as switching between being elastic or rigid. When you react to something in a negative emotional way, you go on tilt and you don't have many options to play around with because the emotion is happening right now. And you stiffen up and you think that's the only way to see the situation. When you're elastic, you can have a little more fun with it, knowing this is temporary can help you get there, or seeing that this is just something that is going to be laughed at later, especially if it's not that big of a deal. Let's explore this further. Elastic versus rigid. When you're elastic, you're playful. When pressure gets applied, you're softening up. Let that pressure apply. You see what's happening. You notice it. You don't let it take you in any direction you don't want to go. However, if you get really serious about the emotion or the pressure or the tension. You become rigid, kind of like glass or brittle clay. You tighten up and you make it worse by not noticing it as the pressure is being applied. The tension becomes an exponential effect on yourself and in the situation. When things get heavy, lighten up instead of tighten up. Oh, so how do you make it a habit to either slow think your way into humor or speed it up? And how do you switch and discern between being elastic with your state of mind or going rigid? In this case, I'd like to see neutrality as the position to be in your everyday life. We all go on autopilot. We're all human. We all got a life to live. However, staying neutral and enjoying whatever is happening, being as present as you can. And like I said, I'm not going to get all spiritual on you, all right? I'm not going to tell you to meditate on a mountain or nothing like that. I'm just saying that when you're present and in the moment and you're just enjoying whatever's happening, even while you're pissed, you can still enjoy something while being upset. And I call this being poised for playfulness. When you're in the neutral position, you're kind of in the middle between being present and playing along. You don't want to overdo it where you're leaping without seeing where you're landing. You know, you just impulsively express yourself or jump into things because you can kind of lose yourself in that. But you also don't want to be so present that you're too self-aware and not really enjoying what's happening in front of you. You know, you're too in your head. You're too noticing things. I've been there. But when you're neutral, you're poised for it. You can be in both states of mind at the same time, waiting for the funny moments to come. If you catch them, you catch them. If you don't, you don't. You just keep on being neutral, man. So don't jump ahead. Don't think that, oh, I got to be funny. This is the part where I got to be funny. Or you're so in your head where like, what's funny about this? I got to find the joke here. There's a big difference between those two mindsets and being right in the middle where it comes to you naturally and you're just ready for it when you're ready for it. All right, this is something that I'm going to do for fun. This is going to be a segment in the Comedy Coach podcast called AI Emails. Let's see what it says here. Email number 1. Did I mess this up or was this actually funny? Hey, Manny, big fan of the podcast. Thank you very much. I've been trying to just be myself, quote unquote, more at work like you talk about. That's a great place to be funny. You know you killed it when HR makes you want to come in and say the joke to them. Oh, that's always, you got to use that one on stage. So yesterday during a meeting, my boss was clearly stressed, like tight jaw, arms crossed, sighing every 10 seconds stressed. Those people are so unaware of their moods. They just start doing that in front of you to kind of like drag you into that. That's a great example. And instead of just sitting there, I try to lighten the mood. I made a joke about how the meeting felt like a hostage negotiation and I was the intern with the pizza. Nobody laughed. My boss just stared at me and said, let's stay focused. Now I'm replaying it and wondering, was the joke bad? Was the timing off? Or am I just not funny in professional settings? I feel like if I don't say something in moments like that, I'm wasting my personality. But when I do say something, it feels like I floored it into a wall. How do you know when to joke and when to shut up without completely losing your edge? This is a great example of what to do when you got to shift between slow thinking and fast thinking. You got to floor it and double down, or you got to slow it down and probe it in a playful way. Because clearly you are being honest and trying to lighten the mood. It's not your fault that this person is in a bad one. So how would you do it? What's your preference in this situation? You got to ask yourself, is this a situation I want to slow it down in? Or is this a situation where I want to speed it up and ramp up the funny? Now, you can still be funny slowing it down. Don't get me wrong. The main goal here is to keep the frame where your sense of humor is front and center on something as ridiculous as this guy's mood. So the first thing that came to mind when I read the part where your boss said, let's stay focused, I would say something like, I was focused. That's exactly why I told you what I said. I noticed that. That would be me. But if I can give you an example of slowing it down, You could say something like, "You're right, it wasn't a hostage negotiation for pizza because no one brought in any." So the second example is a bit slower, where you didn't push it too much. You just went off of his vibe or mood. The first example was speeding it up and doubling it down, imposing a little bit. So, no, I don't think the joke was bad. And no, I don't think the timing was off. This isn't anything you'd get fired for. But you also got to figure out, is this the kind of person you want to work with? This guy sounds like a downer. Whether he exists or not, he's not the kind of person that you should consider a boss. That's just me. Second email says, "I swear I'm funnier than this. Hey, Manny, I'm a pretty chill, funny guy in casual situations. But the second things get tense, like someone pushes back or disagrees with me, I completely lock up. Last weekend at dinner, a friend got annoyed at something I said and snapped at me. Immediately, I went into responsible adult mode, straight-faced, careful words, no humor, no personality. Later, everyone told me, you got really serious. And I guess that's true, but it didn't feel intentional. I felt like my body just clamped down. I wasn't trying to be boring or cold. I just didn't want to make it worse. How do you stay playful without sounding insensitive when emotions show up? Because right now it feels like humor is the first thing to die when things get real." Well, you didn't even mention what made him upset in the first place, that made him snap at you. In moments like these, you just got to ask yourself, like, what was the intention? Did you try to offend somebody intentionally, like harm them? Or did you say something that was like a secret that shouldn't have been said? Because those are boundaries that you got to make sure you don't cross, right? And that takes a little bit of a social and emotional intelligence. It was just fun to say, and you know that your intention was good when you were saying it. That's more on them. So I'd go that route, where if I feel like where I'm coming from is in a good place, then that keeps me elastic and playful. When somebody snaps back at me, that's not my problem. And when you use your sense of humor, you got to come from a place of confidence. You can't back down, especially when you're really good at it. Because I know sometimes when you get started trying to use your sense of humor, maybe you can go a little bit overboard. But if you get really confident and competent using your sense of humor, you'll be able to discern between whether this is your fault or their fault. In this case, it doesn't sound like you really did anything wrong, especially if you're having dinner with this person. So no, I'd say don't get serious, and then just point out exactly what you felt based on him snapping at you. So let's say if he snaps at you for saying a joke, you could say like, "Hey, can you please not raise your voice? We're having dinner." Or, "I can't hear you with the dinner rolls in front of you like that. It's muffling what you're telling me right now." I don't know. Just say something playful like that, especially if it's not on you. Yeah. No, I wouldn't get serious for somebody snapping at me at a dinner table. You could say, "All right, maybe I should go and leave you with the bill." There you go. That's a great one. Next time that comes around, just ask yourself, did you try to offend this person or harm them, or were you just trying to have fun with them and they were too moody? Hey, Manny, this might sound weird, but I think my problem isn't that I'm not funny. It's that I jump too fast. In conversations, I'll feel a funny thought coming up and immediately blurt it out because I'm scared I'll lose it. Half the time it lands, I think, if I had just waited 2 seconds, that would have been way better. But in the moment, I feel this pressure to say something now or never. Is there a way to stay relaxed without missing the window? Because I don't want to become quiet. I just want better timing. So this is what happens when the pressure gets applied and then your mouth starts moving before your thought even finishes. Now, for me, I have a little more confidence in where my mouth is going. But I remember in the beginning, sometimes it would be a little too fast. And I would have to gather my thoughts, or I would stumble my words. And in your case, if you're getting started using your sense of humor, notice these moments where you're trying to jump ahead of yourself and say something funny or witty or clever or whatever, and realize that force, that umph, that impulse, once you master that and once you're aware of that, you can get that little fraction of a second where it makes all the difference. The same way you wrote this email is a great start. And you can always write down what you could have said or how you would have said it, that's a great exercise, because then what you're doing is you're training your mind to take a little bit of a breather before you articulate what you're trying to say. So the best thing you can do right now is just notice that, be aware of that. And if you want to do a little extra, write down how you would have said it and how it could be said, so that when the next time a situation like this comes around, you'll be a little more attuned to what to do. All right, so if this episode hit for you, here's what I want you to hear very, very clearly. You're not unfunny, you're not awkward, and you're not bad under pressure. What's actually happening is the pressure is stalling your thinking when it comes to being funny. So when things get tense, you either talk when you should be listening, or you shut it down when you should be moving. And then you blame yourself for it. That's not a personality issue. That's a mechanics issue. That sense of humor engine is fine-tuned, but do you know how to switch the gears? Do you know how to go by just the sound of the engine? Or do you just know when you got to do it? Most people try to fix this by going harder. They force the humor or they suppress it. They overthink or jump ahead of themselves. And the more you do that, the tighter you get. That's why it keeps getting worse. This episode is not about you being funnier. It's just not letting the pressure stop you from being funny, wherever you're at. And that's what comedy coaching is all about. I'm not here to teach you techniques. I'm here just to loosen up those knots. That thinking that makes you think that you're not good enough or funny enough for these kinds of situations. So I'm not going to teach you jokes. I'm not going to teach you punchlines, okay? I'm not trying to turn you into a performer or anything like that, but I do want you to understand your sense of humor in your own customized way. If you do sign up for one-on-one comedy coaching, we're going to work on your particular lifestyle, your personality, what you prefer, what you don't prefer, what your discipline's like, what you're capable of. Everybody's different. Everybody's sense of humor is different. This is my way of explaining it to the best of my ability so that the majority can see where I'm coming from, but it could be completely different for you. We might need to explain it a different way, or we might need to establish a different kind of habit in order for you not to feel pressure when you're trying to use your sense of humor. All right, so it's right there. It's all there for you. You're a human being. You've got a sense of humor, and you've got a particular way of living your life. And so one-on-one comedy coaching allows your lifestyle and your sense of humor to come together in your own unique way. Visit MannyGaravito.com and inquire there, and let's see if this is right for you. All right, that's it. Thanks for tuning into the podcast, everybody. I really hope you enjoyed this episode. When it comes to being playful under pressure, again, you don't want to overdo it, and you don't want to stop yourself from doing it. There's always that sweet spot, and if you can find it in your life, that's where the humor lives. It's relaxed. It's like a force to be reckoned with. It's really available whenever you're in the right mindset, regardless of what's happening outside of you or within you. A sense of humor is kind of like the bird's eye view of your personality, and it allows you to be more flexible in the ebbs and flows of it. So just keep that in mind. Bruce Lee style, but instead of being like water, be like rubber. Be like the engine. And always be ready to have fun, no matter what's happening. And the more you practice that, the better you are at making it a humor habit. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you on the next podcast episode.